Hello everyone and welcome to SJB Does IT. In this video, we are going to be creating a ticketing system with OsTicket. OsTicket is a great and open source ticketing system used in help desks that contains most of the features in other closed source ticketing systems. But before we get into exploring OsTicket, we'll first set up a local web server within a Windows 10 Pro virtual machine running on Oracle's VirtualBox. Now, as you can see here, I already have VirtualBox installed and running, and we're going to need it for a lab. VirtualBox is a great and free manager for virtual machines, and I'll include a link to download it in the video description. Another step that I've already taken is to have the ISO for Windows 10 Pro downloaded. I'll also include a link for that in the video description so you can download a copy if you haven't already. So let's get started. With VirtualBox open, we want to click on New to create a new virtual machine. Now we'll have to give it a name. I'm going to name mine OsTicket. And then we want to put it in the folder where we want to store our virtual machines. I already have a folder that I've used for my other virtual machines. And we'll select that. And then we want to select the ISO image that we've downloaded. So I have it here recently in my recently used folders. If you've downloaded it in your download folder, you'll have to go over to your download folder by selecting Other and then choosing that. So let's choose that and hit Next. Now we can choose our login credentials for our virtual machine. In this case, I want to use lab user, something simple and easy to remember. And I want to also give it an easy to remember password that we'll use for every password in this lab. You can write it down if you want. Not normally a good practice, but for a lab it's okay. So we'll enter that and hit Next. Now here is the section where we provision our hardware for our virtual machine. You can see the green bar here is the recommended limit of how much RAM and CPUs you can give your virtual machine. In our case, since we want to run the lab as quick as we can, I'm going to try to give it about 8 gigabytes of RAM. And 4 CPUs I'm going to give it since we're just running one virtual machine. Then I'll hit Next. And after that, we have the selection where we choose how much space we want to give to our hard drive in our virtual machine. 50 gigabytes should be more than enough for our lab, so I'll just leave the standard one there. And then we'll hit Next. And now we see the summary screen. Everything looks to be in order, so we'll just hit Finish. And this is going to take about 10 minutes, so I'll speed it up in the video. But right now it's just setting up our virtual machine and spinning it up. So see you back in a few minutes. Great. Now that it's all installed and spun up, we can see that our virtual machine is up and running. The first thing that we might want to do is, you see if I expand the window here, the screen itself doesn't expand. So to make our lab a little easier, we might want to change that. And to do that, we can go to Devices here at the top, and then click on Insert Guest Edition CD Image. And then in the File Explorer, if we open that, and in this PC, we go down to the CD drive D here, click on that. And then double click on VBox Windows Editions -AMD64 to install that add-on package. Click Next, Next, Install. And after it's installed, we'll have to reboot it for the changes to take effect, so we'll hit Finish and Reboot it now. You can see that the user account that we made, lab user, is installed. And now hopefully when we drag the screen to make it larger, it hasn't quite kicked in yet. Okay, now it's running. It expands the resolution to match the screen size so we can make our screen nice and large for our lab. Now the first step in setting up our local server is to enable Internet Information Services, which is Microsoft's proprietary web server. So to do that, we'll have to go to Control Panel, so we'll just type that in here in the search bar. Then we'll head over to Programs, go to Turn Windows Features On or Off. And then we want to make a few selections. The first thing we want to select is Internet Information Services, Worldwide Web Services, Common HTTP Features, we'll select those. Select those as well. Then we want to go to Application Development Features and select CGI here. And we'll minimize that. And finally, in Web Management Tools, we want to open that up and select the IIS Management Console. So with those ones selected, we can hit OK and it'll make the changes. Now that it's made the changes, we can hit close. And to test if it's working, we can open up our web browser. The first time we open the web browser, we have to make these selections here. It's a little bit annoying. And we can enter the loopback address, that's 127.0.0.1, and hit enter. And now we can see that Internet Information Services is up and running. Our next step, which we'll be doing in the browser, so leave that open, is to download PHP Manager for IIS, which will enable us to install PHP, which is the scripting language that is used for OsTicket. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll use Google to search for this. We'll just enter PHP Manager for IIS. Click on that, and we'll download that extension. Click OK. Now let's download it in our Downloads folder. We'll double-click on it to install it. Hit I agree. Now that it's installed, our next software that we have to download is the rewrite module. So I'll go back to Google. I'll just select rewrite module. And we scroll down here to find it for x64. Click on that and download it. And once it's downloaded, we go to the downloaded folder and install that. I accept, install, yes. Now that that's installed, we need to create a folder named PHP on our C drive to store our PHP download. So we'll go to the C drive and File Explorer here. We'll click New Folder, and we'll label that PHP. And after that's done, we'll go ahead and install PHP itself and unzip the contents into that folder which we just made. So if we Google PHP and go to Downloads, click on Windows Downloads, and since we're using IIS, we want to select the non-thread safe version. So here you see non-thread safe, and we'll download the zip of that. Might take a bit, I might speed this up. Now that we have PHP downloaded, we'll head on over to the downloads folder and unzip the contents of that into the PHP folder in our C drive, which we made. So right click on it, hit extract all, we'll change the destination folder to the PHP file, and we'll select it and then click extract. We can see it's in our PHP folder now. After that's done, we need to download MySQL to handle OsTicket when we download that software. So we'll head on over to Google and search for MySQL and head to we'll click on MySQL installer here to go right to the downloads page, and we'll download the installer for that. We don't need an account, so we'll hit no thanks and wait for the download to finish. Should take about 20 seconds. Then we can open the installer. And go through the installation and configuration process. So we'll hit yes. We'll choose server only. We need to download a Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable, so we'll click on that and hit execute, and it'll do it for us. Hit install. Now that we've installed Visual C++, we can continue on with the configuration of MySQL. So it's ready to install there. We'll hit execute. Now that's done, we'll hit next. Now we'll finish up the configuration. We can just leave all the defaults for it. You can use strong password encryption. Once again, I'll use our easy to remember password. Just hit next there. Next. Next. And execute the configuration. So we have the configuration complete, and we can continue on here. Hit finish. And now that MySQL is installed and configured, we'll head over to IIS and open it as an administrator to register PHP. So in the search bar, we can enter IIS. Oops, little mistake there. We have to open that as an administrator. So we'll try that again. Run as administrator. And we'll go over to PHP Manager and register the new PHP version. So we'll double click on the icon and then click Register New PHP Version. And we want to select this file from the PHP folder. So we'll go and search for that. See it there, we'll hit Open, OK. And then we'll restart the server to finish that change. Sorry. Back home here, click Restart. it twice just to be sure, why not? And now we can download OsTicket. So let's go ahead and do that. Head over to Google. Choose the download page for OsTicket. Let's choose the latest one, why not? Click on next step. There's a lot of language choices, but we'll stick with English. We'll select that by moving it over there. We won't be using any of the plugins for this configuration. And we don't have to do that. And now we can watch the download. Now once that's downloaded, we want to extract the upload folder in this folder into our c-inetpub-www root folder, which is the folder that contains our web page, in this case OsTicket. So let's do that. It's going to take a few minutes. Go into a compressed folder here. We'll select upload folder. We'll extract that into the folder that I mentioned in our C drive, inetpub, www-root. Select the folder and hit extract. We'll do that for all current items and hit continue. This might take a couple minutes, so I'll speed it up. Now that we can see it's done extracting, we'll want to rename that folder to OsTicket. It'll make it a bit easier to see in the PHP manager. Hit continue. Now if we go back to IIS as an administrator, we'll close that up and restart it. If we go to the websites on the left here, hit Sites, Default Website, and OsTicket, and if we click on Browse 80 there, you see that we have our own website up and running. That's pretty cool, isn't that? So there's a few extensions we want to be able to enable, or we want to enable before proceeding, and we can do that in IIS by double-clicking on PHP Manager, going down here to enable or disable extensions. And the ones that we want to enable are IMAP, so we'll click right-click enable, INTL, and OP cache. Now if we refresh the browser, we can see the changes there in the extensions. And we can hit continue and see that we have an issue here. The configuration file is missing, so that's pretty easy to change. We'll go to the address of this file, we'll rename it to ostconfig, and we'll change the permissions so that it runs smoothly. So we'll go over to File Explorer, close that one there. So in our websites folder, we go to Include, scroll down to OSTconfig, and first we'll rename it. Then we'll change the permissions on it. We go to the right-click, hit Properties, and go to the Security tab. We go to Advanced, and we want to change the permissions by clicking that. And first, we'll disable inheritance, remove all, and then we'll add one for everyone group. So select a principal to open it up. We'll check the names. We can find everyone there. Hit OK. And we'll give it full permissions. Hit OK. Apply. Okay, now that we've resolved this problem, we can hit continue. Now we're almost ready to install OsTicket, but first we want to give our help desk a name and an admin account. So select whatever you'd like for that. It's just a local lab here. It won't send actual emails outside of our setup. It will just allow us to act as customers and send emails to our help desk agents that we're going to create shortly. So I'll just call it help desk, and I'll say help desk at osticket.com. Then we'll give an admin user for this as well. Just use my own there. We'll use our handy dandy easy to remember password. Oops, weren't supposed to see that. Who could have guessed that one? Now our final step here is to download and install HeidiSQL to create our database for our website on our server. So let's do that again within our browser. We'll go to Google, search for HeidiSQL, and download it. You can use the latest version here. A few seconds to finish downloading, then we can install and configure HeidiSQL to help us manage our database for our website. Clicked it a few too many times here. I'll just keep one of these. Alright, so we can either through the downloads folder or that little folder in the browser, we'll start the installation. Install for all users, yes. Accept. Keep all the basic configurations here. And we'll launch it at the end. So I want to start a new session and name it root. And if you want, we should give it the same password again. Hit open. And then we'll create a database by right-clicking, go into create new and database, and we'll give it the name OsTicket, and hit OK. And then back on our browser, we can finish the installation by entering what we just entered into HeidiSQL. Hit install now, and it will hopefully not take too long. And if all went well, we should see this page here, and we have our own help desk ticketing system up and running on our local server on a virtual machine. So we have two links here. One is where our clients might go to open a new ticket, which would then get sent to our staff control panel. And we're going to create a couple help desk agents to handle some tickets, and then we'll send some example tickets through this portal here. But first we could try out our, enter our admin credentials here because there is one more step. Let's see, we have to, please take a minute to delete setup directory for security reasons. So we'll go over to our OsTicket installation, or OsTicket setup, delete. And if we refresh that, that should be gone. Oh, and we also, please change permission of config file to remove the write access. So we'll just go back to that file we edited earlier, and we'll change its permissions back to read only. So it's in the include folder of OsTicket at the bottom again. OSTconfig, we'll go to properties, security, hit advanced, and we'll edit the permissions for this just to have read. We'll apply, okay. So let's clean up our setup here, and then we'll get started on doing a mock help desk environment.